Welcome back to another episode of Doctor Who in Review. And this is Nisha M., your geek mom, joined by a fantastic panel of guests today. Oh my God. And today we're going to be really looking at, well, Doctor Who in Review. I mean, we kind of named it, huh? Looking at the season and seeing how we feel about it and really tapping into the success, the possibilities, and even the failures of the season, where we think everything is going. So we are joined today, Diversely Geek is joined by the wonderful Louis Lacow from Man Bites Media. Hey, Louis.
Hey guys, welcome back, and it's been a great journey these last 10 episodes, and we'll be able to actually sit down and discuss all the madness that ensued this particular season and what we thought.
Can't wait. And the wonderful Molly.
Thank you. Welcoming back. That's awesome. Glad to be back. Looking forward to talking about this incredible, interesting season.
Right. And you had like a really good time with us with our last review. That was crazy.
Yes,
and,
that was fun.
This is our first time we're having on Molly with the Nerdy Chap.
Yes.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
It's going amazing.
So yeah, I'm back to bring my cynicism, but also honest speaking about reviewing for Doctor Who. So let's do this.
And somewhere along the line, we might be joined by a little cricket named Joe from Life into the West from Diversely Geek. So if she pops in, cool. You know how she is. She's a cricket. She comes, she flows in, she flies out, you know. Just like the TARDIS. Ha! Okay.
Amazing how that works.
So, gosh. I mean, we are supposed to be talking about the entire season.
Yes.
And that's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I know that I'm going to moderate today. I'm going to really let you guys have your say. I really want to enjoy what you're saying, and then I'll definitely respond, because what we're planning on doing, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Louis, is that we're going to be actually just doing a season in review today with about 5 key points. And then we're actually going to delve much more in depth into the villains of season 11 and talk to you about something special we have planned for New Year's Day.
Yes.
Then we're also going to be talking specifically about the success of this Doctor, another episode on Chibnall and the writers. And then, of course, we cannot have it well rounded out without an entire episode on the companions of season 11, which I know that's going to be crazy. I'm glad you put that one last, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, that's the best way to end it, because I mean that's the focus of Doctor Who is the companions and what they bring to each episode and the different personalities, because the Doctor is kind of a stable personality throughout the show with its kind of variances and whatever, but the companions are what changes up so much, and it adds the spice to the show.
Yeah, it's what we connect to. I mean, we connect to the Doctor, but we connect to all of the other pieces of the puzzle. So, let's talk a little bit about, and you know, I could ask 1,000 things, but I had asked y'all if you wouldn't mind pondering this question, because I guess I was thinking it. So what would your short-term review of the season be from 2 points of view? I was wondering, as a long-term Whovian, how do we see it? And then, what if you did an about face? What about if you were looking at it from the point of view from a new Whovian, someone new to the Doctor altogether, like a Jodie fan who came in and is watching the season? So it's okay to throw other things in there as well. I'm happy for that. So let's start with you want to start out, Nerdy Chap?
Sure, I guess.
No pressure.
I guess what I'll say, yeah, no pressure. Well, I'll start off things right of going negative, and then we can only go up from there. So,
That's okay.
As a long-term Doctor Who fan, I have to say Series 11 as a whole, and that's what I'm saying. I'm being honest here. It's not the greatest. I mean, it didn't have it didn't have a lot of standout episodes for me. And what I mean by that is I know what I like. I know what I like when there's something that's so new, revolutionary, like it makes your head explode just to get around there. Like there were the Moffat episodes that people can quote that even though we may not, people, long-term Whovians can go like, oh, I hate Moffat and I don't like him running the show, but they can quote what's their favorite. And what is it? Well, they mentioned Blink. Well, that's a Moffat episode. They mention things like Girl in the Fireplace. Again, a Moffat episode.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find that episode really in series 11. The only one in which I can say reached that new crossing, new barriers, new divide kind of thing for this series was Demons of the Punjab. Mm-hmm. And that's because I thought their handling of the different cultures showed they did their research. They didn't handle the actual historical event well, because some people are going like, well, this didn't really go into it. And I'm like going, well, that it wasn't. It was supposed to be more of like this snapshot of how did this just affect a regular family in the middle of this stuff, not the big whole of Partition Day. If you wanted, but it should have excited you enough to go, I'm confused. Partition Day, I never heard about that. Let me do research. So by making the viewers actually have a moment that if they don't know what Partition Day is, to actually, do the amazing thing of look it up and gain some knowledge, that's fantastic. It means you have to go out of your comfort zone to get a better understanding. I like that. In that sense, it's not served to you on a silver platter of here's everything you need to know. At the same time, I liked how it handled it. It was very on point about Indian culture, which is what we discussed as well. It also was on point about the Muslim wedding practices and things. So you got to see both Hindu and Muslim being adhered to very well and done by the BBC. That's progress, because we can always go back to Talons of Wei Chung or something where we have a white guy playing a Chinese guy back during the Fourth Doctor run, and people would be losing their gosh dang minds in 2018. So it's not. So the sheer fact that they did their research, they tried to handle it as honestly and truthfully as they best they could, shows to me that BBC has made progress over the years, and that is why that episode I think stands out for me. But as far as other stuff on the sci-fi level where you're like, oh my gosh, to try and follow the time travel, you need a map, that didn't happen this season. And that may be because a lot of the writers weren't sci-fi writers. They were more of writers of poignant pieces, of some progressive stuff and things. They were playwrights. They were screenwriters for different shows, but not a lot of them were sci-fi. So I think for Doctor Who to improve come 2020, when we get the Doctor, which I'm sad we have to wait that long, is I think they need more sci-fi. They need to get back to the sci-fi while also trying to get people hitting these new boundary things on the political and change your lines and change your heart stuff and all that. So the up for Chibnall is, as I said before in a previous review, is he's great at dealing with personal drama like grief, sorrow. How does that affect the companions? Because that's where we saw the narrative arc for this. The growth of the companions through their grief and everything like that, and coming to terms with their own personal emotional baggage. As far as the sci-fi, that needs to get kicked up. So that is what I would say as a long-term Whovian. Series 11's not the greatest, but there's always hope. Series 8, I will admit, wasn't the greatest for Capaldi either, but there were his standout episodes. Like I absolutely love. Why am I forgetting it? I know the episode Listen. Listen was a standout episode for me. Mm-hmm. That one was amazing. But I think also it's because the way in which I've interpreted it, that I believe that the monster in which the Doctor was in search of initially was actually him as a child. And the original monster he was looking for, the real monster he was looking for was Clara, the one who, met him when he was a scared kid and told him that fear is a companion. It makes companions of us all. When you look at it that way, to kind of go like, when you see, oh my gosh, how Clara impacts the whole trajectory of the Doctor, that makes your head explode. That brought me to tears. And that's what I'm talking about. Something where you're like, something that happens way in the Doctor's childhood, but now in that current season, you see how that all links up piece by piece, and it's like a stack of dominoes, and you're just like left on the floor going, holy crap, we need more of that.
I definitely agree with you on that. That's 100%.
Wow. I think we're just all taking that in. That was so good. Wow. Molly, you want to take a crack?
Sure. So I agree and disagree with the chef on a few different points. I don't think season 11 was awful, but I don't think it was out of this world either. And here's why. So from the 2 points of view to answer the question, as a long-term Whovian whose favorite Doctor is the 4th and the 10th being a close second, to me, I did miss some of the sci-fi. I did miss some of the antics, but some of the episodes were really poignant. I don't know if they were appropriate as Doctor Who episodes per se, because it's different, right? And I don't think we should be scared of innovating outside of the box in terms of what the show can be, because then, to Nisha's other point, perhaps that does appeal to some of our younger viewers, and I'm saying younger because I'm older, but to the millennial generation where these kinds of social issues are really important to them. So I think that, the writers had to kind of balance that out. They had to appease the longer term Whovians, but they also had to draw in other audiences to keep the show alive. The episodes that I really enjoyed, of course, was the very first one, but Rosa Parks hit me really hard. And as someone from a culture who got picked on a lot, so for me, it was very poignant. When I was 6 months old, my mom had me on her shoulders in a Martin Luther King marches. So I was brought up with this very much top of mind. And so the episode for me, I got really scared for Ryan, and so those kinds of things tugged at my own personal life. So I'm curious to see how others who may not be actual Who people and who just came in this year to, watch Jodie because they might know her from other genres of shows, how they would end up feeling about it. I do think that it left us wanting a little bit more, but not necessarily in a bad way. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay. Yep. That's awesome. Yeah. All right. So I guess I'm next.
We still didn't hear from Nerdy Chap, his perspective for a newer generation. So you may want to, revisit that.
Yeah.
But you want to revisit that?
Well, sure. I can talk about that now, or we can move forward, and then I can get back to that.
No, just do it. Okay. That'd be great.
All right. As far as new viewers, I can't officially answer that. I'm not sure because, I didn't plop any of my nieces and nephews in front of any of the new episodes of Doctor Who and go like, watch this. Tell me what you think. I didn't have that experience. So I can't tell you exactly as a complete newcomer what their thoughts of Doctor Who is. What I can think as far as newcomers to the show, what Doctor Who was going for definitely this season is, one, if you are a woman, you're on board because you got the Doctor is a female, you got a great role model, all that. And so, like, I can imagine girls watching this and going like, yeah, this is my kind of hero, cool. As Molly was talking about, for millennials who are like, all these social issues are important for them and everything like that. And Doctor Who has done social commentary. It's just sometimes there are a couple episodes during this run, though, that I think was more, you got hit with the sledgehammer instead of the subtlety aspect of social commentary. But millennials care about that, of course. So, yeah, you'll pick up some new audience members. But at the same time, as far as, more older, they've lost some. There has been a lot of talk about the ratings and everything to where they've they received lower ratings for whatever reason on some of the episodes and things. And so this is where BBC is already been talking, where we've been hearing all these behind the scenes rumors about maybe retinkering the show. And there was the fear that, Chibnall and Jodie was going to be like backing out, like just after 1 year. It was just crazy madness. Granted, that's all the rumor mill. We don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes. But that's where I'm saying, like, I'm not too sure how much, like, just some newcomer is going to take to the show. I have no idea. Which I can go back to sometimes some of the things of which I said is that their main target audience, originally Doctor Who, was the way British people, anyone from Britain thinks about the show, they think of it as a fairy tale. They think of it as a kid's show. So that's why I said a couple of times, I'm like going, well, the message, if it's tailored down here to where a kid can get it, that's great, because that's their audience. That's what they've been trying to go for. So when it achieves that, yay, Doctor Who works.
Yeah.
That's always the mindset. But that's what I'm saying also on the fairy tale aspect. When I mentioned about the sci-fi needs to make a strong comeback. And so 2020 is going to be interesting. And again, as Molly, you were saying, it'd be really nice that we can ask someone who's actually who is completely new to Who and went, yeah, I tried this and I thought this. Until someone actually does respond, which I would love to hear from, I want to hear.
Yeah, actually, my son, who's 22, is new to Who. He started with Tennant, really enjoyed it.
Okay.
And I think he was so about it. He enjoyed the social aspects of it, but I think he was looking still for that Tennant-y type Who, because he really
liked
the 10th Doctor.
Well, I mean,
when I say new to Who, I mean someone starting with Jodie.
Yeah.
This is their first ever Doctor Who.
Basically, I think that's kind of how I was trying to reference it, because,
sure.
But that's a fair point as well, because now we have three different levels of Who in a sense.
Yeah.
Classic Who is Classic Who. Anything that comes from 8 and above, and I do start with 8, just so everyone understands that, is to me part of the amalgamation of New Who, because they didn't quite get 8 right, poor thing, because he was amazing, and then they moved on to 9, and I believe that with 13 we're moving into an entirely new world. So
well, let me jump in. They got 8 right. They just didn't get 8 right on television, because
that's what I mean. Yeah,
his debut was up against one of the most highly televised episodes of Roseanne Barr, of Roseanne, when like Dan had the heart attack. So the ratings killed Doctor Who for that American revival. But if you're interested in hearing the stories of the 8th Doctor, Big Finish audio dramas does it. You can hear Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor, and it's good times.
So let's
gloriously, by the way, glorious.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. I've loved meeting him, and his passion for the Who universe it's astounding compared.
Yeah,
it really is. It's very refreshing. So no, I now, Lewis, I'll let you go into it, because you and I have already had the discussions.
Yeah,
you kind of know where I'm leaning in terms of what my question is asking. So
okay, so going back on worst episode for me, I'll start off with worst because I like ending with the best stuff. Honestly, it was Witchfinders. That was probably one of the most offensive and just horribly done episodes I've seen in Doctor Who, period. The more and more that I listen to it and watch it, it gets more and more atrocious. Now, that being said, one of my favorite episodes of the new season and of New Who, honestly, and this is where I'll disagree with you, Nerdy Chap, is that there is one super standout episode for me, and that is, amazingly enough, the last episode, the Battle of Ranskor Av Kolos. I might be butchering that name. But that whole episode, I just love every moment of it. It goes into everything that we've been asking for all season. The adventure aspect, the storytelling of classic Who, and just being able to go off on an adventure with the Doctor and just enjoy this madness of sci-fi. That's what it's all about, and that's what this episode encapsulates. But then again, it could also be because we haven't had that all season. It was a breath of fresh air for me once I saw it again in the new with the what do you call it, the new incarnation of the Doctor. And
yeah, I would agree.
It's that breath.
Oh, I totally agree with you as far as that and everything of just like, wow, like when I watched that, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I watched an actual Doctor Who episode. Yay! because it got that, because it had sci-fi. Well, the whole thing of that, it had its sci-fi, it connected stuff back to the first episode and things. You saw how things related and stuff. And I'm like, great. It's just at the same time, I do know if you sit down for a moment and decide to do it, you can find flaws in it. And that's the only thing that made me go, to her.
Well,
because,
yeah.
like, you know, I listen to the people who find the flaws, and I'm like, yeah, whenever they make a good point, I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right about that.
I mean, the thing is, though, like, this has been one of my biggest criticisms of the season, and this is why I've kind of tuned out a lot of people on the internet, because let's be real, like, they're going really hypercritical on this season more than they usually do. And they're going very negative on things that they have no reason to go negative on, and they have no point of validity. And I'm not talking about you, Nerdy Chat, because you've actually brought up very valid points, and the points that you bring are, I agree with about 90% of them. So yeah, I agree with you on that. It's other people that bring up certain points, and I'm like, really? You're going to be criticizing that? Come on, guys. But
the thing is that
is it just for the sake of
people? I was going to say real quick is that people have been overly critical from the start because of the PR campaign that began this thing. The PR campaign was, look, the Doctor's a woman, isn't this great? And we're going to have this whole new progressive thing. Look at all the diversity and all this stuff. And they made it a big political campaign thingy that you had these fans that when they see those things go, oh, now we got to tear that all down. And so, of course, every tiny thing is getting picked on because that's how you set up. It's kind of like Ghostbusters 2016. When you were hearing the campaign that if you didn't like this movie, you automatically are sexist. Well, guess what you get out of the woodwork? I wonder why the film bombed. Yeah. You had everybody and their brother bashing it in any capacity they could possibly find. So it started with the PR campaign.
Yeah, I agree. But overall, honestly, like the season, I really enjoyed it. I loved the way that the companions interacted with the Doctor, and we're finally seeing that kind of perfect balance of the companions and the Doctor, which we haven't seen in so long. And I've been dying to watch and see that again. And we're finally getting it. The Doctor's not this Playboy bunny that's going to be googly eyeing over all these companions, and the companions aren't googly eyeing over the Doctor anymore. I'm so happy that we're past that, and we kind of touched on that in the last Doctor, and now we're finally getting 100% past that, and let's go on these adventures. I think that this season was the building blocks for an amazing adventure that's going to be going on, and I think that a lot of new Whovians that are actually coming on for the first time because it's a female Doctor, whatever the lure is as either female Doctor or just being of age to be able to watch it for the first time. And I think it's a good season to start on. I honestly think it goes back to its roots. Like Nerdy Chap was saying, that it goes back to the educational aspect of the show. It's going to educate these children about certain events that have not occurred. It's in history. This season had two very poignant episodes with Rosa Parks and the Punjab, which they really brought up very hot topics for their time at that time in history, obviously. And it needs to be a conversation that's had with children. And that's
Yeah.
what this show's aimed for. It's aimed to give life lessons, which is fantastic. And that's what I love about Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I honestly, rating for the season, I'd probably give it about 7.5, 8 overall.
Well, Matt matches us. We mentioned the other day. But yeah, we all said around 7.5, somewhere in there. I do think that I think it was Lewis who said it. I do think that they have been unduly critical, and I have to wonder how much of that is just bias. But I do have to disagree on the gender thing that you mentioned, Chef, because I don't like to view the Doctor as male or female, and I always am bringing this up, so sorry. But it's to me, the Doctor is an alien, neither gender. Yes, she presents female. Yes, we've had a lot of women-ish, centric-ish episodes. I think it's more of a statement of the times and more of just kind of tying into some of those things, because it's been very male gender centric, obviously, since its beginnings. But I don't think that should be the focus for Doctor Who. And yes, it seemed to present itself that way, but I think I like the idea of it being life lessons, because so many of the materials that are given to our children these days do not include accurate portrayals of history. So.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the one thing I was also going to bring up is for Lewis, when you mentioned about like you didn't have the doctor making googly eyes and all this stuff. Well, actually, that's how the BBC kind of lost some of its female New Who, because they were into Dr. Nakati. When you had people like David Tennant playing the part, and you have people like Matt Smith playing the part, there was a lot of girls women who hopped on board because they're like, I find the Doctor attractive. I'm all for this. Mm-hmm. You have a whole following based on that alone. And then when you kind of take that away, it's like, well, what the heck? I want my romance. Give me romance. What happened?
I liked Capaldi.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I think people were looking forward to, which didn't happen, is when is River going to meet up with Jodie's doctor, and it's still going to be the Doctor and the Doctor's wife.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be actually really cool.
Just let that sink in.
Well, Alex is waiting.
I know people are looking for that.
Alex is waiting for that episode.
Oh, I am too.
We were with her at what con were we at when it came out, and she was like, "Yeah, I want that episode. I can't wait." It's like,
yeah, right.
Cool.
That'd be great.
I really, I'm gonna jump in. So I'm listening to everyone's conversations, and what's so interesting still is I agree with many of everyone's points here, but what's so interesting is that we're still having such a difficult time because we're all strongly old Whovians. Now, I think Molly and I may be the longest Whovians, because I believe I've been watching for 43 years at this point. 40.
Yep, I'll give you credit for that totally.
41. I think Molly's right behind me. I think, right, Molly?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Aren't you right behind me? So,
yeah,
and then
so that would be 70.
And then we have Richard and Lewis coming up behind. And the only reason I'm mentioning it is because I guess in a sense we're from a mindset of Who, where it has been maybe indoctrinated in a sense, but in a good way.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. See, I got it in there. That the Doctor is not static and will never be static. That was always the giving grace of BBC, that they had to figure out a way to be able to create longevity for this character that would then be able to survive, and then be able to capture our hearts again and again and again. And in the grace of ingenuity, they figured out, let's do this just regeneration. And what we need to understand is the terminology regeneration means that we're going to recreate. We're going to recreate, and this is a new Doctor. It's the same Doctor, but yet there's a whole new personality and a culture to this Doctor. And every time the Doctor comes back, that's what we see. And we've watched that happen time and time again now. We're on the 13th Doctor. So at no point does it ever occur to me not to love the Doctor. that has come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the reason I asked the question the way I did, it was, so when New Who, or 2007, came around,
2005.
we were there when the critics were bashing this whole new RTD world.
Yeah.
What is this? This is not Who. This is not Doctor Who. This is not Doctor Who. And that uproar hung around for how long? Well into Tenet. And
Yeah.
we watched it. We heard it. We listened to it. Did we not, Molly? Didn't we not
Of course.
hear it? And we kept saying, but give it a chance. It's a whole new
Mm-hmm.
world because it's addressing the needs of a new generation.
Oh, I really thought that after Eccleston, they were going to kill it.
Yeah. Almost. I was in shock that that they did what they did, but I adored Eccleston. Thing is there were enough of us who understood what he brought to this character, and that the brilliance of his emotional movement and his emotional journey, and that is what we've gotten again with Jodie. And I see such strong similarities in the personalizations and the character. So I'm seeing it like from the eyes of a mom who now has 2 generations behind me who are Whovians. And I really do have 2 generations. Just like Molly has a 20-something, so do I. And then I also have teenagers watching it now. And I have a 10-year-old watching it now. And I'm looking at it from their point of view. What makes Doctor Who relevant to a 10-year-old, to a teenager, and to a 20-something-year-old?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The stories since we were watching it at 10 from 10 has had to try and stay relative to my life and to your life. And I feel like this the culture of this particular generation of Who, I believe that it has given us a lot of possibilities for that new generation to be able to I think to find something to anchor onto. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does. And I think I'd like to expand on that with the panel too, is do we as big Whovians have unrealistic expectations of what we perceive the show should be, rather than letting the innovation say, oh, okay,
100%.
now
100%.
I see where this is going. Yeah.
100%. I mean, we're looking at it as fans that are adults watching the show, that in realization it's supposed to be directed towards children. We have to understand that. So as fans of the show, you got to actually sit back and sometimes go, all right, I get the point of that episode. Let's sit back and just keep enjoying the adventure.
And so are we as Whovians, are we savvy enough to understand that, that we need to be accepting of these kind of changes? So now you see what the question was. You realize we only answered one of the 5 questions. That's how much of a conversation it was going to be. I figured it would be. So, hey, we have our Cricket who just jumped in, and that would be Joe Life into the West from Diversely Geek, and she's going to give us a really quick point of view from a 20-something.
Awesome.
From the millennial generation. So, jump in.
That is I. Yes. Just really quickly to jump off of that lastly what was said. Do we as a general Doctor Who fan base and fandom, are we in the space where we are ready and accepting of those changes and willing and as fluid as the Doctor is themselves? Well, if you think about it, in the day and age that we live in, the louder voices tend to be the more negative voices, but they aren't necessarily always the more popular and populous of the voices. And if I remember correctly, if I recall, during New York Comic Con, I believe Chris Chibnall actually quoted some numbers back off to us and was like, it was an 85 or 88% approval for the new Doctor and the new companions. And I just think about the fact that there was what we saw was so much backlash and so much like buzz about a backlash. But you have to think about how it is. We're in a day and age where to draw like popularity, it tends to be the go-to to talk about the negative points of it. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I love about doing this podcast is we tend to gear more so to like, we're not critiqueless. Like we're critical because you're supposed to be critical of the things that you love. And I think that that's actually something that my generation is really great at on both ends. We are loud and we'll make our voices heard, but for the most part, for the right reasons. And I think that it's not even, there is a generational, there's a generational gap in understanding in how to take and how your intake is for a show and for a fandom. But when you think about it, like you guys just said, it's geared toward kids. It's geared toward a younger audience and generation. And the thing that I love the most about the season is that Yaz and Ryan are very young. I think we forget that they're 19, and we're expecting so much of them because we're so used to our companions being quote unquote adults, or literally adults, but these are kids, and they're extremely mature and wise and wonderful. But I think that the greatest thing this season has done is be real and relatable. And I don't know if anyone feels that, like if anyone else feels that way, but in terms of, for me, at least my generation, I'm technically, actor-wise, I think we're around like the same age, but the companions are supposed to be younger. They're supposed to be in the generation under me. And
well, Bill was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it.
Well, a lot of the classic companions from the original Doctors were also very young.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I remember, like Jo. Mm-hmm. She was exactly. That's actually what this kind of makes me think of.
Ace was a kid, so exactly. I think that it's refreshingly bringing it back to and that's for another conversation for another day for our companions conversation. But the homage is being paid in a way that it's very difficult maybe for a class.
I just started thinking.
Yeah, you heard me. She and I got there. That like there's so much to the classic Who here, but we just don't understand how to see it. Maybe because she and I had that conversation. So. Okay, she flitted out again.
Well, let me bring this up. One thing is when I said I haven't heard someone who's starting off with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor yet, and I said, love to hear that. That wasn't a me being a smart aleck. That's me actually asking those who are listening into this podcast, those who are going to listen into this, that if you are new to Who, that's actually a challenge. If you are new to Who and Jodie is your first Doctor, please comment. Send something. Let us know. This is what I think, because I want to hear. I think we all want to hear what you have to say. Because yes, I get the idea of the generational thing, because I was going to go into that aspect too. The cynic thing, when you're talking about people having a problem with 9 and everything with Eccleston, is we've seen it. There's that meme that goes around every time the Doctor regenerates. Like we got a new Doctor. Oh, I hate the Doctor. And then you get around the middle, like I love this Doctor. And then when the Doctor's about to regenerate, I'm going to be so sad. And then it gets back and it keeps going again and again and again. So it's always the aspect of change. People are, whenever you change things, people aren't automatically on board with it, with the change. Mm-hmm. Because that's just a general. People have issues with change. One thing I was going to bring up with is my other fandom, which I think some of us here are fans of, is Star Wars. And one classic, I've dealt with the whole thing since the beginning. Like, I mean, hearing that Ewoks is what's ruined Star Wars, the original trilogy, and then when the new one, when the prequel trilogy came out, like, oh, you completely destroyed my childhood. This is the worst thing ever. And then the new trilogy came out, like, oh, again, no, Disney is just burning Star Wars in fire. It was bad. I've dealt with this, okay, and I've watched all of it. And when I say all of it, I mean all of it. Caravan of Courage? Oh, yeah, I've seen it. Star Wars Holiday Special? Seen it. Battle of Endor? Yeah, that one too. I watched it.
That is so horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, those ones. I've watched them. You know why? Because I'm an 80s kid. But what I was going to get to the point on is the most recent thing I've been watching, which I'm not really liking, but I still watch it because it's new Star Wars content and everything, and thinking to myself, if I had, because I don't have kids of my own yet. I have nieces and nephews, but I don't have kids of my own. If I was to sit my kid in front of this, would they be on board? Is I've been watching Resistance. And right now, honestly, I hate the main character. I think the main character is the worst. But that doesn't mean that my son or daughter doesn't fall in love with that character and go, Dad, let's watch, Star Wars Resistance. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're watching this.
That's part of the conversation that I'm having with Joe. I'm just jumping in because you made the exact point, because I have actually sat down over the last few weeks with a few people who we should be having on the show. So you asked, and it's coming, Nerdy Chap. We have a few first brand new Whovians who this was their first season. We are going to be having those people come in for a conversation because I really wanted us to be Lewis and I wanted us to be able to have that type of round table. You know what I'm saying? Which is very unusual, but that's something I thought that would be great to bring to the audience, to have an opportunity for 5 generations of Whovians to sit down and go, hey, this is what we thought. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's going to be awesome. I can't wait for that to happen. But I think that's a great point. All of these points are just so good. And that's the thing about Doctor Who. It's the glory of Doctor Who. That's the reason why Molly and I have been listening and watching and reading and for how many years of our life, because no matter what anyone says, that
1979.
Thank you. 1979. I think I started. I was trying to remember. You're 79. I think I'm 77. But anyway,
I was born in 79 as well. 80s kid. But what I was going to say about Star Wars Resistance is, let me also say this real quick, is I think for the older Whovians out there, the ones who have been watching for a while, so getting back to Who instead of Star Wars, is to have the maturity enough, like I kind of have, I think, for a moment when you go, you know what? I realize this isn't made for me. Like when I'm watching Star Wars Resistance and go like, oh God, Kaz is the worst. I'm like, but this show wasn't made for me. It was made for the idea of my kids. And so I can still find story elements that I like. I will say that. I'll still look for things like, oh, look, they gave a shout out. Oh, the First Order. Oh, that seems cool. And oh, there's this. But at the same time, there's moments where you have that maturity factor where you go, this isn't made for me, but I can still watch it.
Oh, no way. I mean, it's always made for me. So I disagree. No, only because, like, for me, I mean, I've loved Star Wars since the very first one, and what was it, 77, 79, somewhere in there. And it's like, but same with Doctor Who. For me, I will always view it as my show because I love it. And in terms of like my last thoughts on this season, I really wanted to see it succeed. I really want to see where it can go. I'm interested in the New Year's special, even though I wish it was a holiday special. And I really wish that they weren't going to wait all the way till 2020. But to wrap it up, a lot of strengths. But I think this season to me was a lot of trial by error, trial and error rather. And I think they were successful in what they tried to do. And I'm going to end that with there.
Very good. Okay, Joe?
Yeah.
I could go first if you want. That way,
Yeah.
Okay, Okay, there you go.
Yeah, not all the pressure on Jyoti.
Right.
Like after that, now you.
So honestly, final thoughts. It's pretty much. I think it's a good season, and I think it's going to be a good lead up to the next season, and we're going to be able to see Jodie's Doctor actually take off 100% and really fulfill what we want in sci-fi. I think that this was setting the table, setting the grounds for a lot of things, and kind of getting a lot of things out of the way so we could have that adventure next season, which is kind of what they've done with Doctor Who with each of the Doctors. The first season, it's set up, and then the adventure begins. So I think that's what we're going to expect in this season, the next season, rather.
So yeah, overall, I'm completely satisfied with this season and more. I absolutely love it. I think it's been a first of many has had many firsts, and I think it was well needed and super refreshing. And I think that for the first time, a lot of Whovians are feeling or having to deal with the fact that okay, something isn't for them. Like it's like Doctor Who isn't about a very specific older generation of a fan base. It's about inspiring young minds and being that force for hope and creativity and curiosity in a younger generation. And I think that this season did that brilliantly, as well as having fantastic representation, not being at all stereotypical, having the most heart I've felt in a very long time from Doctor Who, having companions that to me were super relatable because they weren't like at all sexualized, they weren't at all like made out to be like, you know, the most important or like the best of, you know, it was an extremely relatable season and in all of its themes as well, with the grief as the overlying one that I took away. And I think Jodie's Doctor has left a major imprint on the role of the Doctor, and I think that for generations to come, she'll be a Doctor that we come back to as a fan favorite.
Yeah, I agree.
It was all amazing. Go ahead.
I was going to say, for me, I didn't want to end off on saying like realizing things aren't made for, because let me explain that a little bit more and different. What I mean is you have that. So am I saying, oh, well, Doctor Who's not for you, you can't watch? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is have the maturity to realize if your kid's enjoying Doctor Who, don't just automatically go like, this is crap, and like kick the TV because, you know, you get it. You can maybe see Doctor Who, much like the Doctor sees the world and the universe through the eyes of a new companion. See Doctor Who through the eyes of a new person just becoming a fan of Doctor Who. And it could be your own kid. And you're like, I didn't see this before. And let's not kid ourselves when it comes to older fans. Third Doctor's fans remember him fighting bubble wrap as a tentacle thingy and him like acting like this is a big threat. And then in 2018, we got bubble wrap that can kill you by popping it because it explodes. Yeah. So Third Doctor fans can go like, I see what you did there. New Who fans will be like, what are you talking about? And that's when you go, well, back in the time, there was this Third Doctor, right? And, back in the day. But, you know, but think about it. Not everything, if you really go back and you go like, well, let me show you what's really great, and you watch a classic episode and you're like, yeah, the effects back then wasn't the greatest in the world. Oh my God. Yeah, you're going to have that moment, because the thing is also nostalgia makes you somewhat blind to certain things that where you realize now as an adult. But that doesn't mean your childhood is ruined. If that's the case, seriously reanalyze your childhood. Doctor Who continue watching. My hope is come 2020, Doctor Who is going to be better. We're going to see BBC is going to listen more to some of the older fans and try and bring them back on board, as well as also the new fans, where we're going to get more sci-fi, which would be nice. And we're going to see even better episodes, because that's the whole thing with Doctor Who when it comes to change, is you can always hope for better. That's what all fans want of anything. They always want things to be better. They don't want things to suck. They want things to be great. So if it's, for those who are like, I love this, that's great. You love this, but it can always be better. And that's always the charge. And I've seen the patterns of Chibnall now, and it's sad that I recognize them this quickly in. I'm hoping he gets away from that, because I will tell you, if I have to see someone die just to go, and now it's a threat, I'm like, dude, you've done this pretty much every episode. Stop killing off a rando just to establish that it's danger. Forget the patterns. Go for new. Make it better. That's what we're hoping for in the next coming season.
I think that's a good wrap up for that. Yeah, agree with all those, honestly. Yeah.
It was very beautiful. It was wonderful. It was very beautiful because everyone had a very different point, a perspective, right? And I love that, because that's the whole point to everything, is that we do have the ability to think for ourselves and see everything without rose-colored glasses per se. We don't have to fall into someone's box. And that's the great thing about our show, right, Lewis?
Yes, it is.
For us to be able to give voice to something like that, and not really just, hey, not just allow it, just to embrace it. And I feel that that's what the season has brought to us. It's a very open, engaging, and embracing, enticing, intriguing, and at times extremely silly and frustrating, season, and from the show writing to the even to the scenes. I didn't love everything about this. I also still will give it a 7.5. Pretty harsh in terms of my scoring, but as Joe said, this gives us an opportunity to see the universe of Who from extremely different points of view. For me, I have waited 40-something years without realizing I was waiting to be able to see the diversity of cast that we've seen, and to feel so belonging, a sense of belongingness, and to feel so included. And I never, I didn't realize it, because I don't see the world as me always being excluded from it. When it comes to these shows, I put myself in the experience, but with this, I felt fully included. And for me, that was an experience that I have not had an opportunity to have, but a few times throughout the history of Doctor Who. But that's not a negative, right? It's just that I happen to have a new experience as an Indian woman, being able to feel this wonderfulness of having a doctor who is such an amazing, brilliant actress, and to have characters like Yaz and Ryan and Graham and Grace and so many others who I felt represented the plethora of the fandom of Doctor Who doesn't always get to be seen on that screen. And that's why I feel like there's a lot of hope. And I think you're right, Lewis. They got all the minutia out of the way, and Nerdy Chat. They got it out of the way. Now it's time to go on to what, somewhat of what I would say.
Space adventures and crazy aliens. Let's get
crazy adventures and crazy aliens. Exactly right. And cheesy adventures and cheesy aliens.
Hell yeah.
So
100%.
That's where I have it, and I am so excited to have had all of you here today with amazing perspectives. And I am going to say it again, guys. We only got through the first question of the 5 we had to discuss today. That's pretty awesome. But in a way, we managed to get all of the rest of them in there anyway, so that was pretty cool. So we have Lewis and Joe here. If you want to give a little bit of overview about Man Bites Media and Diversely Geek, let's first talk with Molly and Nerdy Chap and let us know how we can find you guys.
Sure. So I'm just a lifelong Whovian who enjoys doing these podcasts and been on some panels at some cons, but I don't have a dedicated website per se, but you can always find me hanging out at Diversity Geek or here with Man Bites Media.
Woohoo! And we are so happy to have you. Yes.
Yay!
Yay. Okay, Nerdy Chap.
And hey, I'm the Nerdy Chap. I'm an ordained minister who likes sci-fi stuff, and I like to be cynical, sarcastic, comedic, and all that other stuff, but at the same time also try and get at the heart of things. And I appreciate history as well as religion, and I like bringing things honesty and grounded in truth. So yeah, that's why I will say blunt stuff, but at the same time, I want things to be clear so that there is no wavering. Anyway, with that being said, you can find me at Chap Nerdy on Twitter. Has not changed. So see, again, keeping that honesty if you want to follow me, at Chap Nerdy.
That was awesome. All right, Joe, you want to talk a little bit about Diversely Geek and what we have coming up with for the Yeah, she's like, no.
How about we do Man Bites Media first? That way.
Okay. So with Man Bites Media, we have 3 episodes weekly that launch, and they're roughly about an hour long each. Most of them are hosted by myself, but we also bring on Brandon that hosts the Friday episode, which is our flagship episode that we review movies that are streaming on the streaming networks. But this is kind of like 3 bros sitting on a couch drinking beer type of thing, type of attitude. And honestly, we just have fun. There's no holds bar. It's just plain conversation straight up. And this doesn't, by bros, I mean it's not just men, because sometimes we have women included in the conversation. So I don't want people thinking that, oh, it's only guys. No, we actually have everybody and anybody that wants to join us on the show to be able to join us on the show. And then the retrospective episode, which drops every Wednesday, is basically a fan tribute. It brings your favorite person in film history, whether it be a film, whether it be a person, whether it be a thing. And we talk about that one thing. We've actually talked with the Nerdy Chap, and we've brought Darth Vader up. We've brought up my top 5 movies, which we're doing this month. And of course, Doctor Who in Review, which we do amazingly with Diversely Geek, and the wonderful Nisha and Jody bringing on their amazing company, Diversely Geek. Now it's your turn.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, weekly podcast wise, we have, as Lucia did just mention, this one, Doctor Who in Review, and then we also have our Brain Steam, which basically takes a look at the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math environments and how they relate to us in our everyday lives and the impact that they make on us in the unseen ways. And there's also the Time and Space and Relativity, which is a podcast based in having a prime focus on exactly that, time and space and relativity. So it's going to be sci-fi based, discussing different areas in media where time travel and the like are the primary focus of that show or theme of the show or book or so on and so forth. And coming up at the start of the new year in 2019, I will be hosting our Avatar: The Last Airbender, a year in review, and we'll start with an episode per week, basically going into, well, the amazingness that is Avatar: The Last Airbender, and you can look out for lots of other features like Nisha M, your geek mom, and Lewis from Man Bites Media.
Yes,
and
definitely.
There's a lot more to come.
There's so much more to come, but don't forget our flagship show is Diversely Geek Discusses My Geek Universe, where we host amazing, in-depth personal conversations with geek-tastic folks like Lewis and Molly and Nerdy Chap and so many more, where they give us an insight into embracing their inner geek and their personal journey into embracing, expressing, and living that inner geek. So those stories are fantastic. And oh my God, we just learned so much. And every time I talk to somebody in one of those interviews, I learned so much about me. So I can't wait. So much of this is dropping in the new year, guys. So so much content coming. Oh my God. And then Lewis, definitely we want to talk, very last thing is our New Year's episode where we're going to be.
We will be doing a live stream of our reactions of the New Year's special of Doctor Who season 11, and this is going to be epic because we're going to try to get in as many voices from both of our companies together and try to bring the widest perspective that we can. Widest perspective, because sounded whitest. I was like, I was like, no, not white.
Oh, good God. Okay.
Does our paintbrush only have one palette? That's not right.
I was going to say, that would rule me out completely, right? Okay. I bet you Lewis is totally red right now.
I ain't white, that's for sure.
Oh, God, go ahead. That was so good.
So you'll be able to check out any of our content that we're bringing to you on our Facebook page, and stay tuned for the updates of the time and exactly when we're going to start the event, because we'll be live streaming it on both of our Facebook accounts, both on Diversely Geek and Man Bites Media. So you'll be able to see it through both of the sites if you're tuned into whichever one of them.
Yeah, just stay tuned for our event, which all of you will be part of. So yes.
Woo-hoo.
All right. So we are signing off from another amazing episode of Doctor Who in Review. And again, this is Nisha, I'm your geek mom, with Louis Lacow from Man Bites Media, Molly Marcus, the amazing Whovian, and Nerdy Chip, as well as Joe, Life into the West from Diversely Geek. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another fantastic discussion of all things Doctor Who. Have a great week.